The espresso machine hissed as Olivia Bennett pressed down the portafilter with practiced hands. 8 months at the Copper Kettle Cafe had turned these movements into muscle memory. Pull the shot. Steam the milk. Pour. Repeat. She glanced at the clock. 7:14 a.m. Her heart kicked up a notch, an involuntary response she'd stopped fighting weeks ago. He would walk through that door in exactly 1 minute. You're doing it again, Maya whispered beside her, eyes sparkling. That look. What look? The one you get every morning at 7:15. Like you're trying not to stare at the door but can't help yourself. Heat crawled up Olivia's neck. I don't know what you're talking about. Sure you don't. Maya bumped her shoulder. Tall, dark, and dangerous, is about to walk in, order his double espresso, leave a $50 tip on a $4 coffee, then sit in his corner booth staring at you for exactly 45 minutes. Same as every day for 8 months. You timed it? Someone has to document your tragic romance. It's not. The bell chimed. Olivia's breath caught. Dante Castellano walked into the Copper Kettle Cafe, the way he did everything with absolute command. 6'3", broad-shouldered in a charcoal suit that fit like armor. Dark hair swept back from a face of sharp angles, but it was his eyes that always caught her steel gray, almost silver, and right now fixed directly on her. The cafe parted around him. Customers stepped aside without knowing why. Their survival instincts recognized what their conscious minds missed. This was a man who didn't yield space. This was a man who took it. Good morning, Mr. Castellano, Olivia said. Proud her voice stayed steady. Olivia. He said her name like it mattered, like those 4 syllables carried weight. The usual. Double espresso. Coming right up. She turned to the machine, hyper-aware of his gaze on her back. It felt physical, a touch between her shoulder blades as she worked. The espresso pulled dark and rich. Perfect crema. She carried it to his corner booth, the one with a clear view of both exits. He always sat with his back to the wall. Thank you. His fingers brushed hers as he took the cup. A fraction of a second. Barely there. Electricity shot up her arm. His eyes held hers a beat too long before she pulled away. Let me know if you need anything else. I will. Olivia retreated behind the counter, heart hammering like she'd run a marathon instead of walked 15 feet. This was ridiculous. She was 27, not a teenager with a crush, yet every morning at 7:15, her entire body woke up in ways that had nothing to do with the 4 hours of sleep she'd scraped together. Girl, Maya breathed. The tension between you two could power Chicago. There's no tension. Liar, Maya grinned. When are you letting that man take you to dinner? Never, he hasn't asked. Why not? You're gorgeous. He can't take his eyes off you. Olivia shook her head, lowering her voice. Maya, we both know who he is. The Castellano family has a certain reputation. Maya sobered. Dangerous, maybe. But he's never been anything but respectful here. And the way he looks at you, that's not dangerous. That's interested. Olivia's phone buzzed. She pulled it out. Her stomach dropped. Unknown number. Payment overdue. Don't ignore us. She shoved the phone back, forcing a smile for the next customer. But her hands shook as she made their latte. 8 months ago, Olivia had made a choice. Her mother, Catherine, had been diagnosed with stage 3 lung cancer. Insurance approved standard chemo, but denied the experimental treatment, the one that might actually save her life. Olivia exhausted every option. Bank loans denied. Fundraising raised barely $3,000. Her mother was dying. So she did what desperate people do. She found herself in the back office of a pawn shop, signing papers she barely understood for $20,000 from a man named Eddie Kozlov. The money saved her mother. The treatment was working. Catherine was in her 9th month of chemo, and doctors were cautiously optimistic, but the cost was drowning Olivia alive. $20,000 borrowed, $25,000 already paid back through double shifts, weekend gigs, and living on ramen. She still owed $35,000. Because the interest was predatory, illegal, and absolutely real. The morning rush slowed around 10. Olivia was wiping tables when her phone buzzed. Again. 5 calls, all blocked numbers. She didn't answer. At 11:30, the door opened. 2 men walked in. Olivia's blood turned to ice. They weren't trying to blend in. Leather jackets despite the warm morning, tattoos on their necks and hands. They walked with casual menace, the kind that came from people who'd done violence and expected to do more. They walked straight toward her. Olivia Bennett? The taller one's tone made clear he already knew. Every customer in the cafe sensed something wrong. Conversations died. People froze. Yes. Her voice came out smaller than she wanted. Message from our mutual friends about your outstanding balance. Her throat went dry. I told them I need more time. I'm working as much as I can. Time's up, sweetheart. 8 months. You've paid back what you borrowed and then some, but interest is a bitch. His smile didn't reach his eyes. Eddie wants 10 grand by Friday, or things get unpleasant. I don't have $10,000. The shorter one, built like a refrigerator, reached across the counter and grabbed her wrist. His grip was crushing. Then maybe you should think creatively. His eyes crawled over her. Pretty girl like you? There are ways to earn money fast. Olivia's heart stopped. She understood exactly what he meant. Let go of me. Or what? Call the cops? The tall one laughed. Who'll they believe? Us? Or the girl who borrowed from a loan shark? The grip tightened. Pain shot up her arm. Tears pricked her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Then, I suggest you remove your hand from her. Now. The voice came from behind them. Cold, controlled, absolutely deadly. Both men turned and froze. Dante Castellano stood there, having moved from his booth without a sound. Up close, he was even more imposing, broader, taller, radiating lethal stillness that made the air thick. His gray eyes were fixed on the hand gripping Olivia's wrist. The look in them promised violence. Mr. Castellano. The tall one's bravado evaporated. We didn't know she was. You were just leaving. Dante's voice never rose above conversational, but it carried the weight of a death sentence. After you apologized to the lady, we're sorry. The short one released Olivia's wrist like it burned. We didn't mean any disrespect. You work for Eddie Kozlov. It wasn't a question. Yes, sir. Tell Eddie that Miss Bennett's debt is no longer his concern. It's mine now. Dante took a step closer. Both men stepped back. And if I see either of you within a mile of this cafe or anywhere near her, I will consider it a personal insult. He paused. Do you understand what happens to people who personally insult me? Yes, sir. We understand. Then go. And pray I don't change my mind about letting you walk out. They ran. The cafe remained frozen after the door slammed. Then slowly, conversations resumed. People returned to their coffees, but Olivia couldn't move. She stood behind the counter, cradling her bruised wrist, staring at the man who had just claimed her debt like it was nothing, like $35,000 was pocket change. Dante turned to face her. The deadly coldness in his eyes thawed slightly as they met hers. We need to talk, he said quietly. Somewhere private. Every rational part of Olivia's brain screamed that she was trading one dangerous man for another. That there was no such thing as a free rescue. That whatever Dante Castellano wanted would cost more than money. But her wrist throbbed, and her mother's face flashed in her mind, pale and fragile in her hospital bed, fighting for her life because Olivia had found a way to pay. Okay, she whispered. Maya appeared beside her. Olivia, it's fine. She untied her apron with shaking hands. Cover for me? Girl, are you sure? Olivia looked at Dante Castellano. At the man who'd watched her for 8 months, who tipped $50 and said her name like it meant something, who'd just made 2 violent criminals flee with nothing but words. No, she admitted, but I don't have a choice. And that was the truth that terrified her most of all. If this story hooked you, smash that like button and tell me in the comments. Share it with someone who loves a good mafia romance. Trust me, they'll thank you. And subscribe to follow Olivia and Dante's journey, because this is just the beginning. The black Mercedes Maybach slid smoothly into the flow of Chicago traffic. Olivia sat in the back seat, far enough from Dante Castellano to breathe, yet close enough to feel his presence without being swallowed by it. Up front, a middle-aged man with salt and pepper hair drove, his eyes flicking now and then to the rearview mirror. The partition between the driver's seat and the back had been raised, sealing them inside absolute privacy. Olivia looked down at her wrist, where the bruise was coming into focus, blooming darker by the minute. She did not know where to begin, or even whether she should say anything at all. Dante broke the silence first. His voice was low and steady, without a trace of pressure. She did not have to explain if she did not want to, but he needed to know enough to protect her. Olivia drew a deep breath. Her mother had stage 3 lung cancer. The insurance company refused to cover the new treatment. She had no money and no choice but to borrow from Eddie Kozlov. $20,000. She had paid back $25,000 over the last 8 months, and now she still owed $35,000 because of what they called their interest. She stopped and let out a bitter, humorless laugh. Her mother was doing better. The doctors said the tumor was shrinking. At least that part was working. Dante was quiet for a moment. His steel-gray gaze turned toward the window. When he spoke again, something in his tone had shifted, softer but heavier too, as if the gentleness carried its own weight. He knew she gave the homeless boy on the corner bread every morning when she thought no one was watching. Olivia turned toward him, stunned. He knew she studied nursing at night after 12 hours on her feet. He knew she slept only 3 to 4 hours a night and lived on instant noodles so she could save money to pay her debt and take care of her mother. He looked back at her, and in those cold eyes Olivia saw something she had not expected to find there. Respect. She was a good person, Olivia. The world was short on people like her. A chill moved along Olivia's spine, not from fear, but from the realization that this man had been watching her far more closely than she had ever imagined. 8 months, 45 minutes every morning. He had not just been sitting there drinking coffee. He had been observing her. "So what do you want from me?" she asked bluntly, her voice harder than she meant it to be. "Because I am not naive enough to believe someone pays $35,000 for a stranger and wants nothing in return." Dante did not look offended. He only tilted his head slightly, as if her question was entirely reasonable. "Nothing." She lifted her eyebrows, unconvinced. He was not buying her. Olivia. He did not need more property or another puppet. He had plenty of those. He paused, and when he continued, his voice dropped until it was almost a whisper. He only wanted her safe. Before Olivia could react, the phone in Dante's suit pocket vibrated. He glanced at the screen, and she saw his jaw tighten. He answered, saying nothing beyond a few short acknowledgments, but his face darkened second by second, like a sky gathering itself before a storm. When he ended the call, he pressed a button to lower the partition separating them from the driver. Vincent. The man in front looked at them through the mirror. "Yes, sir." Eddie Kozlov was not just an ordinary loan shark. He had someone behind him. "Change the route. Do not go back to the cafe." Vincent nodded without a question, turning the wheel as he guided the car onto a different road. Olivia felt the air shift, like the pressure change that comes before the weather breaks. "What is happening?" Dante turned to her, and this time there was no softness left in his eyes, only a lethal seriousness. "The situation has changed. You can't go back to your apartment tonight." Olivia's heart began to race. "Why?" Dante looked at her for a long moment, as if weighing how much to say. Finally, he answered, his voice cold as steel. "Because someone wants you dead before I can protect you, and they are moving faster than I thought." The Mercedes came to a stop in front of an aging apartment building in Pilsen. Olivia looked up at the third-floor window, the one she had lived behind for the last 2 years. A tiny studio, thin walls, no air conditioning, but it was hers. It was home. It was the only place she had. Vincent opened the car door, his gaze sweeping the street with the wary attention of a man accustomed to danger. He said he would go ahead and check. Dante nodded, and Olivia saw that his hand was already resting on something beneath his suit jacket. She did not want to think about what it was. They waited in a tense silence. 1 minute, 2 minutes. Dante's phone vibrated. He answered, and his face went rigid. "Bring her up, but prepare yourself." Olivia felt her stomach tighten as they climbed the stairs. Each step felt heavier than the one before. When they reached the 3rd floor, she saw the first thing that made her heart stop. Her apartment door was open, not cracked, not ajar. It was wide open, like an invitation made of malice. Vincent stood inside, the phone still pressed to his ear, his face cold as stone but his eyes saying everything. Olivia stepped in, and her world collapsed. Her small apartment had been turned inside out, drawers yanked open, clothes flung across the floor. The mattress was slashed, white stuffing spilling out like an open wound. Books, papers, everything she owned lay scattered in a wrecked, senseless chaos. But what hurt most was the empty picture frame on the windowsill. Her family photo was gone, the photo of her mother, the only photo she had left of her father before he died. Her laptop was gone too, the laptop that held everything: her class schedule, her lecture notes, and most importantly, her mother's hospital visit calendar. "Olivia." Dante's voice came from behind her, low and tight. She turned and saw him staring into the mirror in the tiny bathroom. She stepped closer, and when she saw what had been written there, her legs gave out. Red lipstick. The letters were messy, but cruelly clear. "We know where you live. We know where she is." And beneath it, an address. Northwestern Memorial Hospital, room 412. Her mother's room. My mother. Olivia's voice came out like a broken whisper. "They know where my mother is. They know." Her legs could not hold her anymore. She would have fallen if Dante had not caught her in time. Her body shook uncontrollably, her breathing fast and ragged with panic. Her mother, a woman lying in a hospital bed, fragile, unable to defend herself. Dante did not offer comfort. He moved. The phone was at his ear before Olivia could even find her breath again. Send 4 men to Northwestern Memorial immediately. Room 412. Catherine Bennett. Protect her 24/7. No one goes in except verified medical staff and her daughter. He ended the call and turned to Olivia, placing both hands on her shoulders, forcing her to look into his eyes. Your mother will be safe. I promise. My people will be there in 15 minutes. No one will touch her. Olivia wanted to believe him. She needed to believe him, because right now he was the only thing standing between her and the darkness that was swallowing her life whole. She drew a deep breath, trying to pull herself back together from the wreckage of her own home. I will go with you. Dante nodded, but she was not finished. But I will pay back every cent. Everything you spend on this, I will repay. She held his gaze, searching for the last scraps of strength inside her trembling voice. I am not an object to be bought, Mr. Castellano. Dante looked at her for a long moment, and then something unexpected happened. One corner of his mouth lifted, not a sneer, but something almost like respect. I am not buying you, Olivia. I am trying to keep you alive. There is a difference. There was no time to argue. She grabbed a small suitcase, stuffed in a few clothes that had been spared, a few nursing textbooks, and the only photograph they had missed, an old picture of her mother hidden in a desk drawer. When she stood at the door and looked back one last time, she understood something that landed like pain. This place had been her home. It had been the one place where she felt safe. Now it was only proof that nowhere was safe anymore. Who is behind Eddie Kozlov? She asked, as they went down the stairs. Dante was silent for a long time. His footsteps sounded on the old steps, steady as a drumbeat warning that something dark was coming. When he finally answered, his voice was colder than anything she had ever heard. A man I have wanted to kill for a very long time. Castellano Tower rose in the heart of Chicago like a monument to power. 50 stories of glass and steel climbed into the night sky, the lights in its windows glittering like thousands of eyes watching the city below. The Mercedes slid into the underground garage, where 2 men in black suits were already waiting. They nodded to Dante with a respect that looked almost like fear, then opened the door for Olivia without ever meeting her gaze. Security here was discreet, but absolute. There were no obvious cameras, no iron fences, yet Olivia could feel it, every step tracked, every breath accounted for. A private elevator carried them straight to the penthouse. There were no buttons for other floors, only a biometric panel that Dante pressed his hand against. When the doors opened at the top level, Olivia saw Vincent standing there, and her chest tightened. His left hand was wrapped in bandages, blood seeping through the white gauze. A long cut ran from his temple down to his right cheekbone, newly stitched but still flushed red. The nursing student in her woke up before she could even think. What happened? She moved closer, her hand already reaching out to check the injury. You need the dressing changed. Those stitches can get infected if they are not cared for properly. Vincent looked surprised by her reaction, but he did not step back. The convoy was ambushed on the way back after dropping you at the apartment. 2 SUVs blocked us front and back. 4 gunmen. His eyes darkened. This is not Eddie Kozlov's work. He does not have people like that. Dante stood beside them, his jaw locked tight. Eddie Kozlov is small time. He lends money, he threatens, he breaks a few fingers when he needs to, but he does not have the nerve, and he does not have the resources to set up an ambush like this. Vincent looked at Dante, the glance loaded with meaning. Salvatore. Dante did not answer with words. He only nodded once, but that single motion carried the weight of an entire war. His eyes darkened like a sky before a storm, and Olivia felt something shift in the air. Something dangerous, something personal. Someone is using your debt as a chess piece, Dante said, his voice cold as steel. And I will find out why. An older woman appeared from the hallway, her silver hair neatly pinned up, her face kind but her eyes sharp. She wore a simple gray dress, carrying herself like someone who had spent a lifetime managing a powerful household. Mr. Castellano. She looked at Dante, then at Olivia, and not a trace of judgment crossed her face. I have prepared a room for the guest. Mrs. Hayes, this is Olivia Bennett. Dante placed a light hand on Olivia's back, guiding her toward the housekeeper. She will stay here until I settle this. Take care of her. Mrs. Hayes nodded, and smiled at Olivia, a warmth that felt startling in the chill of the penthouse. "Come with me, dear. Your room is ready." Olivia followed her down a long marble hallway, past paintings she guessed were worth more than her old apartment, past closed doors that hid who knew how many secrets. The suite Mrs. Hayes led her into was larger than the place she had just left behind. A king-sized bed with crisp white sheets, a closet as big as her old living room, and a wall of glass overlooking Lake Michigan, shimmering beneath the city lights. "This is your room," Mrs. Hayes said gently. "You have full use of this space. If you need anything, press the button beside the bed." Olivia stood in the middle of the lavish room, feeling so out of place she could barely breathe. Everything here was beautiful, expensive, perfect, but it was cold, like a gilded cage. "Dear," Mrs. Hayes paused at the door, turned back, and studied Olivia with a strange expression, part curiosity, and something that looked like hope. "He has never brought anyone here. Not once." And then she was gone, leaving Olivia alone with her thoughts and the darkness beyond the glass. She did not know how long she lay there, eyes wide open, staring at a ceiling that did not belong to her. Sleep would not come. Only the images of her ransacked apartment, the message on the mirror, and the fear for her mother kept circling through her mind. Then she heard it. A piano. The melody drifted from somewhere in the penthouse, soft but steeped in hurt, notes that sounded sorrowful and alone, like crying without tears. Olivia sat up, and despite every instinct telling her to stay in her room, she opened the door and stepped into the dark hallway. Following the sound, the piano led her through a dark hallway, down a spiral staircase she had never even known existed. But as she drew closer, the sound stopped. The large room ahead was empty, except for a glossy black grand piano sitting in silence beneath moonlight slipping through the glass. Olivia stood there for a moment, unsure whether to turn back or go on. Then she saw the glass door to the terrace standing slightly open, and a figure out there. Dante. He leaned against the railing, looking out over Chicago at night. The city spread below like a carpet of light, millions of lives unfolding while they stood here, separated from all of it. His shoulders were tight beneath a white shirt with the sleeves rolled up, and for the first time Olivia saw him look almost tired, almost human. She meant to leave, but he already knew she was there. "You can't sleep." Not a question. A statement. Olivia stepped onto the terrace, the night wind cold against her skin. "I heard the piano." Dante did not turn around, his eyes still fixed on the distant horizon. "My mother taught me to play. She said music was the only way to say the things you can't say with words." He paused. "When I can't sleep, I play so I can remember her." Olivia did not ask for more. She understood the ache of loss, understood the long nights when memory is the only thing left. She came to stand beside him, keeping just enough distance, and together they watched the city in silence, not suffocating, not something they had to fill, just two people existing in the dark, each carrying their own wounds. The phone in Olivia's pajama pocket vibrated, breaking the moment. She looked at the screen, and her heart lurched. "Mom," she answered quickly. "Mom, are you okay?" "Honey," Catherine's voice was weak but steady. "I am fine, but something strange happened. Today, 2 people came to visit me." Olivia felt her blood slow. "Who?" "They said they were your friends. 2 men, but I do not know them. They asked where you live, what kind of work you do, when you come to see me. I did not tell them anything, but they frightened me, sweetheart." Olivia's hand shook so badly she almost dropped the phone. It felt as if someone were squeezing her throat. "Do not worry, Mom." She tried to keep her voice calm even as she fell apart inside. "Someone will come to protect you. They are good people. Trust me." When she ended the call, her whole body trembled uncontrollably. Dante had heard everything. He did not need her to explain. His phone was already at his ear. "Double the men at the hospital. No one goes into Catherine Bennett's room without my direct permission. Make a list of everyone who has visited in the last 24 hours. He ended the call and looked at Olivia. "They are testing how well I protect you. This is psychological warfare. They want you afraid." Olivia let out a bitter laugh that sounded almost like a sob. "It is working." Dante's phone vibrated. He looked at the screen, and Olivia saw something she had never seen on his face. Shock, then pure rage, primal and lethal. He turned the screen toward her. A photograph of her, standing on this terrace, right now. The angle was from a building across the way, maybe a high-rise apartment or an office. She could see herself clearly in the image, hair blowing in the wind, her face pale under the moon. And beneath the photo was a message. "Beautiful view, isn't she?" Dante grabbed her arm and pulled her inside before Olivia could even react. He turned off every light, pushed her back from the glass. "They are watching us." His voice was a low growl in the dark. Right now, from out there, Olivia felt as if she could not breathe. The penthouse, the safe place, the fortress she had thought untouchable, had been breached without anyone ever stepping inside. "Who?" she whispered, her voice shaking. "Who is doing all of this? Why?" Dante stood in the darkness, and when he answered, his voice was ice cold, thick with hatred gathered over years. "Roberto Salvatore." The next morning arrived under a dull gray sky, and an air so heavy it felt like a storm was already leaning over the city, waiting. Olivia sat in the penthouse living room, a cup of coffee in her hands that had gone cold long ago, and she did not even try to drink it. Mrs. Hayes was somewhere in the kitchen, and two men in black suits stood guard at opposite ends of the hallway, their faces as expressionless as carved stone. Dante emerged from his office, changed into a dark gray suit, his eyes cold and focused. He stopped in front of Olivia. He would end this with Eddie Kozlov today. She would stay here with Mrs. Hayes and his men. She was not to leave the penthouse for any reason. Olivia nodded, too drained to argue. She had not slept after what happened last night. The image of that photograph of her on the terrace haunted her every time she closed her eyes. Dante looked at her for one more second, as if he wanted to say something, and then he turned away. Vincent was already waiting by the elevator, and they were gone. The black SUV moved through Chicago streets, heading toward the south side of the city, where Eddie Kozlov ran his loan shark operation from an office above a rundown pawn shop. Dante sat in the back, silent, his mind calculating every outcome that could unfold. Eddie Kozlov was a coward. He would hand over every piece of information he had about Roberto Salvatore just to keep breathing. That was how men like him survived. When the vehicle stopped in front of the pawn shop, Vincent was the first to sense something wrong. The door was open. Dante looked up. Yes, the metal door that led upstairs to Eddie's office was cracked open, weak light leaking from inside. No one stood watch. No sound. Only an unnatural silence, the kind that exists when something terrible has already happened. They climbed the stairs, Vincent in front with his gun drawn, Dante behind him, each step measured. The metallic smell of blood reached them before they saw anything. Eddie Kozlov's office was a cluttered room full of paperwork, cheap cigar boxes, and stolen goods waiting to be moved. But Eddie himself was no longer cluttered. He sat in the leather chair behind his desk, head tipped back, eyes wide open, staring at the ceiling. A neat bullet hole sat in the center of his forehead, the blood dried black in a trail down his face. Dante stepped closer, taking in the scene with the detached gaze of a man who had seen death too many times. "At least 6 hours, Vincent said, checking body temperature, "probably since last night, around the time we were at Bennett's apartment." Dante did not answer. He was looking at Eddie's desk. The drawers had been pulled open, files scattered everywhere. But one thing was missing. Every paper connected to Olivia, the loan contract, the payment receipts, the personal information, all of it had been taken. In its place, on the desktop, lay a clean white sheet with neat, clear handwriting, like a declaration of war. "Her debt belongs to me now. Castellano, come and get it if you can." And in the lower corner, 2 initials signed in red ink like blood, R.S. Dante picked up the paper, and Vincent saw something that almost never happened. His boss's jaw clenched so hard tendons stood out along his neck. His eyes were no longer cold. They were burning. "He killed Eddie to take Olivia's debt," Dante said, his voice a low growl deep in his throat. Vincent shook his head, not understanding. Why? $35,000 is nothing to Salvatore. He could burn that amount without blinking. Dante stared out the dirty window where the weak Chicago light filtered through. When he answered, his voice carried hatred piled up over 11 years. "Not for the money. For her. For me. Roberto Salvatore was the man who killed my father. 11 years ago. In our own house. In front of my eyes. The two families had been enemies for generations, but he was the one who crossed every line. I sent him to prison. 8 years. And now he is out. And he wants revenge." Vincent went quiet. He knew the story, but hearing it again still sent a cold line through his spine. "He found your weakness." Dante did not deny it. He only pulled out his phone and called. Olivia answered on the second ring, her voice tight with worry. "What is it?" "The situation is more complicated than I thought. Dante said, his eyes still on Eddie Kozlov's corpse. Eddie Kozlov is dead. Someone killed him last night and took all the paperwork about your debt. Silence on the other end. Then Olivia's voice came, trembling. Who does my debt belong to now? Dante drew a slow breath. Someone 1,000 times more dangerous than Eddie Kozlov. The man who killed my father. Dante returned to the penthouse when the afternoon was already late, the Chicago sky turning the dark gray of an approaching storm. Olivia had been waiting for him for hours, pacing the living room like an animal trapped in a cage, her mind spinning with 1,000 questions that had nowhere to land. When the elevator doors opened and Dante stepped out, she saw the change on his face at once. The usual controlled coldness was gone. In its place was something more primal, more dangerous, hatred. "We need to talk," he said, stripping off his suit jacket and tossing it onto a chair. "About Roberto Salvatore. About everything." Olivia sat down, and Dante sat across from her, elbows braced on his knees, eyes locked on hers. Roberto Salvatore is the boss of the Salvatore family, one of the oldest criminal organizations in Chicago. His family and mine have been enemies for generations, fighting over territory, power, everything. But 11 years ago, he crossed every line. He paused, and Olivia saw his jaw tighten. "He killed my father, in our house, in front of me. I was 25. Olivia said nothing. She did not know what to say. She only sat there and listened, feeling the weight of every word he laid down. "I spent the next 5 years rebuilding my family's empire and collecting evidence against him. I could not kill him the way I wanted to, but I could send him to hell another way. 8 years in federal prison. He got out 3 months ago, and since then he has been planning his revenge." Dante looked at her, and in those steel-gray eyes Olivia saw a brutal truth. "He found you. He knows I have been watching you for 8 months, and he decided to use you to hurt me." Olivia felt as if someone had punched her in the chest. She stood abruptly, her legs shaking but forcing herself upright. "Then I have to leave," she said, trying to keep her voice steady, even as she broke apart inside. "I do not want to be the reason you are in danger. Let me go. I will find another way. I will disappear, change my name, leave Chicago. Anything." Dante did not move. He only looked at her with an expression she could not read. "If you leave here, you will be dead within 24 hours. Olivia froze. "Roberto has people everywhere," he went on, his voice as cold as fact. "The airport, the bus station, every way out of this city. He does not need you alive to hurt me, Olivia. He only needs you dead. Painfully, slowly. So I will know I failed to protect you." She felt like she could not breathe. The options spun through her mind, and every one of them led to a wall. Stay here, danger. Leave, certain death. Go to Maya, and she would put her friend in danger. Go to her mother, and she would bring death to the hospital door. There was no way out. She was trapped in a war that was not hers, between 2 powerful men, and she was only a coffee shop girl trying to pay off a debt to save her mother. She dropped back into the chair, all strength draining out of her body. And then she asked the question that had haunted her from the moment Dante Castellano intervened at the cafe. "Why? Why are you doing all of this for me? You do not owe me anything. You did not even know me until 8 months ago." Dante was silent for a long time, long enough that Olivia thought he would not answer. But then he spoke, and his voice was different, softer, more real, "Because you are the first person in a long time who has made me want to protect something that is not duty." He looked at her, and in that moment, Olivia did not see the cold Mafia boss. She saw a man who had lost too much, trying not to lose more. "I have lived my entire life in this world, protecting territory, protecting family, protecting honor. It has all been duty. But you, Olivia, you are a choice. My first choice in years." Olivia did not know how to react to that confession. She only knew something had shifted between them, a line crossed that could not be uncrossed. She drew a deep breath and made a decision. "Then teach me how to protect myself." Dante lifted an eyebrow, surprised. "I do not want to be a burden," Olivia said, her voice firmer than she felt. "I do not want to sit here waiting while someone else fights for me. If I am trapped in this war, I want the ability to fight." Dante studied her for a long moment, and then one corner of his mouth lifted, almost a smile. "Vincent will teach you, starting tomorrow." The next morning, Olivia stood in the basement gym of Castellano Tower, facing Vincent as he showed her how to hold her fist the right way to punch without breaking her fingers. She learned how to break free when someone grabbed her wrist, how to use her elbows and knees as weapons, how to turn ordinary, everyday objects into tools for self-defense. She did not know she would need these lessons far sooner than anyone could imagine. 3 weeks passed, and Olivia's life began to settle into a new rhythm, strange and yet familiar. Every morning she still went to the Copper Kettle Cafe, made coffee, served customers, smiled at Maya as if everything were normal. Only now, Vincent always waited for her at the corner, discreet as a shadow, taking her there and bringing her back. Maya asked once about the man in the black suit who kept appearing near the cafe, and Olivia only said he was a friend of a friend. She hated lying, but the truth would be more dangerous. Every evening she went down to the basement and trained with Vincent until her muscles ached and sweat soaked through her shirt. She learned how to punch, how to kick, how to break free when someone grabbed her from behind, how to use an attacker's weight against him. She was no longer the fragile girl trembling when Bruno grabbed her wrist. She was becoming something else. And then there were dinners with Dante, when his schedule allowed. They sat across from each other in the vast dining room while Mrs. Hayes served elaborate dishes Olivia did not even know the names of, and they talked about books, about music, about small things that had nothing to do with the Mafia or the debt or Roberto Salvatore. Late-night conversations on the terrace became routine. Olivia would not be able to sleep. She would wander outside, and Dante would already be there, looking out at the city as if he were standing guard over Chicago's dreams. They did not talk much in those moments. They simply stood beside each other, sharing the dark, and somehow that was enough. But today was different. Olivia came home late after an extra shift and stepped into a penthouse that was dark. No Mrs. Hayes greeting her at the door, no smell of food from the kitchen, only darkness and silence, and heavy breathing from the room with the piano. She moved toward it, her steps soft on the marble floor. Dante sat in the armchair beside the grand piano, a whiskey bottle in his hand nearly empty. He was not wearing a suit or his usual white shirt, only a black t-shirt and rumpled trousers, as if he had been sitting here all day. The lid of the piano stood open, the keys untouched and still. It was the first time she had ever seen him drunk. Olivia meant to turn away, to give him privacy, but his voice rose out of the dark. "Today is the day she died." Olivia stopped. "My mother," Dante said, not looking at her, his eyes fixed on the empty space in front of him. "She died when I was 15. Heart disease. We knew she was sick, but my family did not have the power we have now. Not the money, not the connections." He took a swallow of whiskey, and Olivia saw his hand shake. "She needed surgery. We could not afford it. She died on the way to the hospital, in the cheap ambulance we managed to get. She died because I was not strong enough to save her." Olivia felt her heart tighten. She understood that pain. She had almost lost her own mother the same way. "And then 10 years later Roberto Salvatore killed my father," Dante went on, his voice bitter, "right in front of me. I was 25, and suddenly I had to take over everything. An empire, a war, a legacy soaked in blood." He looked down at the whiskey bottle in his hand. "I did not choose this life, Olivia. I never wanted to become this, but I did not have a choice." Olivia said nothing. There were no words big enough for this moment. Instead, she walked over and sat beside him. She reached out and took his hand, the one that was not holding the bottle. For the first time, she touched him first, not because of the electricity that sparked when their fingers brushed over a coffee cup, not by accident, on purpose. Dante looked down at her hand holding his. He stared for a long time, as if it were the most precious thing he had ever seen, and then, without a word, he turned his palm over and threaded his fingers through hers. They sat there in silence, two broken people trying to hold each other together. The explosion ripped the moment apart. Dante's phone, lying on the table beside them, suddenly burst. Not a bomb, no flames, no dangerous shrapnel, just a sharp pop that destroyed the device, shattered the screen, and sent bits of hardware skittering away. Olivia screamed and lurched to her feet. Dante shot up, the fight instinct wiping the drunkenness off him in an instant. And then the television on the wall turned on. Words appeared against a black screen. "I can touch you anytime, Castellano." Roberto was playing psychological games. He was showing them that nowhere was safe, that he could penetrate this penthouse whenever he wanted. Olivia trembled as she looked at Dante. "He is not going to stop, is he?" Dante stared at the television for a long moment, then turned it off. "No, but neither am I." "Why are you not afraid?" she asked, her voice a whisper. Dante turned to her, And in those steel gray eyes, she saw something she had never seen before. Not coldness, not anger, but absolute resolve, because for the first time in a very long time, I have something worth fighting for. A month had passed since the night the phone exploded, and Roberto Salvatore stayed silent. No threatening messages, no stolen photographs, no strangers showing up at the hospital to ask about Olivia's mother. That silence was more terrifying than any threat, like a storm stacking itself along the horizon, waiting for the perfect moment to break. And then the invitation arrived, the annual charity gala for the Chicago Arts Foundation, the most elite event of the year, where everyone with power in the city would appear. Dante could not refuse to attend without stirring dangerous speculation. "I want you to go with me," he said to Olivia over dinner that night, his tone as casual as if he were inviting her for coffee. Olivia almost choked on her pasta. "Me? To a high society gala? I do not even have anything to wear." Mrs. Hayes appeared as if she had been waiting for this moment, a knowing smile on her lips. "Leave that part to me, dear," and she kept her word. On the night of the gala, when Olivia looked at herself in the mirror, she did not recognize the woman looking back. The emerald green gown clung to her body as if it had been made for her alone, the silk falling like water and ending in a soft train that brushed the floor. Her hair was swept up, exposing the curve of her neck and shoulders. The diamond earrings Mrs. Hayes insisted she borrow caught the light and scattered it into small, bright fires. She looked like she belonged to this world, even though she knew she did not. When she walked into the living room, Dante was waiting. He wore a perfectly tailored black tuxedo, dark hair slicked back, and when he saw her he went still, as if he had turned to stone. 1 second passed. 2. He said nothing at first, only watched her, and the look in his eyes made her forget how to breathe. "You are so beautiful I forgot how to breathe," he finally said, his voice rough. Heat rushed into Olivia's face, but she did not look away. "Thank you. You do not look bad yourself." One corner of Dante's mouth lifted. "Not bad. I will remember that." The Palmer House Hilton blazed with light when they arrived. A red carpet stretched from the car to the grand entrance, photographers' flashes popping, and hundreds of eyes turned toward them as Dante Castellano stepped out with a woman no one recognized at his side. Olivia felt whispers ripple through the crowd like waves. "Who is she? Never seen her before. Castellano's woman. No way." Dante placed a hand at her back, guiding her through the crowd with the confidence of a man who owned the room. Men nodded to him with respect, laced with fear. Women looked at Olivia with curiosity and envy. A heavy-set, middle-aged man with a gaudy gold watch approached, his smile like a crocodile's. "Dante, old friend. And who is this? I do not believe I have had the pleasure." Dante looked at the man without a trace of emotion. "She is my guest, Morrison. That is enough." The man named Morrison blinked, his smile dying, and backed away as if he had been slapped. Dante did not explain, did not apologize. He simply kept walking, leading Olivia through the crowd as if the man did not exist. When the orchestra began to play a waltz, Dante turned to her. "Dance with me. Not a question, but not in order either." She nodded. They stepped onto the floor, and when Dante's hand settled at her waist and drew her closer, everything around them seemed to fall away. There was only the music, his breath, and the way their bodies moved together, as if they had done this 1,000 times before. "I did not know you could dance," she whispered. "There are many things you do not know about me," he answered, his eyes never leaving hers, and the chemistry between them was so obvious everyone around them could see it. "Everyone is watching us," Olivia murmured, her cheeks flushed. "Let them watch." Dante pulled her a fraction closer. "I want the whole world to know who you belong to." Olivia's heart kicked wildly. She was about to say something, anything, but then she saw Dante's eyes change, going cold, going hard. She turned her head in the direction he was looking and saw a man moving toward them. He looked about 45, salt and pepper hair slicked back, an expensive suit, a polite smile on his lips, but his eyes were dead, completely empty, like staring into an abyss. "Dante," the man said, his voice warmly false. "It has been too long." Dante's hand at Olivia's waist tightened until it almost hurt. "Roberto, and this must be Miss Bennet." Roberto Salvatore looked at her, and Olivia felt as if someone had poured ice water down her spine. "So you are the woman who finally managed to distract my friend. You know, technically, you still owe me $35,000. I bought the debt from the previous owner, before he retired permanently." Olivia felt fear fear down to the bone. But she did not tremble. She did not step back. She looked straight into Roberto Salvatore's dead eyes and spoke, her voice calmer than she felt. "I do not owe you anything." Roberto laughed, and the sound was winter cold. "You have courage. I like that." Dante stepped forward, placing himself between Olivia and Roberto, his voice ice. "Leave, while you can still walk out on your own." Roberto did not look afraid. He only smiled, the smile of a man who knew he held dangerous cards. "See you again, Dante. Soon." And then he turned away, disappearing into the crowd as if he had never been there at all. On the drive back, Dante was silent, his hands gripping the steering wheel so hard his knuckles went white. Olivia watched him, watched his jaw clenched, watched the anger boiling beneath his calm. He is not going to stop at threats, is he? Dante did not look at her. His eyes stayed on the road ahead, on the Chicago darkness swallowing them. "No, this is only the beginning." The penthouse was silent when they stepped out of the elevator. No Mrs. Hayes waiting at the door, no warm light spilling from the living room, only darkness, and the thick tension between them, the kind that had been building all night. From the moment Dante said she was so beautiful he forgot how to breathe, from the waltz on the dance floor, from the way he stood between her and Roberto Salvatore like a wall made to protect. Dante took off his tuxedo jacket without a word, tossed it onto a chair, and walked straight toward his room. Not a single sentence, not a single glance, as if she did not exist. Olivia stood in the living room, still wearing the emerald green gown, and she did not want the night to end like this. Not after everything that had happened. Not when she could still feel the warmth of his hand at her waist, still hear him saying he wanted the whole world to know who she belonged to. "Dante," she called, her voice carrying in the dark. He stopped in the middle of the hallway. He did not turn around. His shoulders were rigid as stone. "Do not go." Silence. 1 second. 2. Then his voice came, rough and restrained. "Olivia, if I do not leave right now, then what?" Dante turned. And when their eyes met, Olivia saw what he had been trying to hide. Desire. Primal and fierce, like a fire held back too long and ready to erupt. "Then I will not be able to stop," he said, each word dragged from his chest by sheer will. "And you have to understand, if we cross this line, everything will change. You will no longer be someone I protect. You will be mine." He stepped closer, and Olivia felt the weight of every word he spoke. "My enemies will become your enemies. Not just now. Forever. You will not be able to retreat. You will not be able to disappear. You will be bound to my world, to my darkness, to everything I am." Olivia looked at him, the man who had saved her from men collecting debts, who had protected her mother, who had shown her the gentleness hidden beneath his cold armor. And she made her decision. "Roberto threatened to kill me," she said, her voice steady. "He watched my mother, destroyed my apartment, took everything I had. He looked into my eyes tonight and smiled as if I was already dead." She stepped toward Dante, closing the distance between them. "I have been his enemy already, Dante. From the moment you stood up for me at the cafe, from the moment you declared my debt was yours." She stopped right in front of him, lifting her face to his burning steel gray eyes. "So let me choose what side I stand on." And then she kissed him. No waiting. No hesitation. She pressed her hand to his chest, rose onto her toes, and put her mouth on his. Dante went still for a heartbeat, as if he could not believe it was happening. Then he lost control. His arm wrapped around her waist, pulling her tight against him, and he kissed her back with the desperation of a man who had been waiting for this his entire life. His kiss was not gentle. It was hungry, fierce, as if he were trying to carve her into his soul, and when his hand rose to her face, Olivia felt something that made her heart tighten. His hand was shaking. Dante Castellano, the cold Mafia boss who made all of Chicago afraid, was trembling when he touched her. But then he stopped, pulled himself back, even though it was clearly the hardest thing he had ever done. His breath was heavy, his forehead resting against hers. "Not tonight," he whispered, his voice raw. Olivia wanted to protest, but he continued. "Not when you just faced Roberto. Not when the adrenaline is still running through your blood. When we are together for the first time. I want you sure. I want it to be your choice, not a reaction to fear." Olivia understood, and she respected it. She nodded, and Dante kissed her forehead, gentle, tender, nothing like the blazing kiss from a moment ago. "This is a declaration of war, Olivia," he murmured against her ear. With Roberto, and with my own heart. I do not know which one is more dangerous." Olivia looked up at him, and she smiled, the first real smile since the night her apartment had been torn apart. "I choose both." 1 week passed like a dream. Olivia woke each morning in a room that no longer felt cold, because Dante was lying beside her. They did not rush, did not push. It was simply the quiet of nights spent together, her curled inside his arms, listening to the steady beat of his heart against her ear. Morning kisses when he had to leave to handle business, late dinners when he came back, worn down but always finding her first. They were officially together, even though neither of them said it out loud. They did not need to. Everyone in the penthouse knew. Mrs. Hayes smiled whenever she saw them. Vincent nodded at Olivia as if she had become part of the family. Olivia still went to work at the Copper Kettle every day, still trained in self-defense with Vincent each evening. She did not want to lose herself just because she was with Dante, and he respected that. Her mother was discharged after 9 months of treatment, the tumor having shrunk significantly, the doctors optimistic about the prognosis. Catherine Bennett moved into a new apartment Dante had rented for her, a safe, clean place, with 2 plainclothes bodyguards protecting her 24/7. She did not know who they were, assuming they were building security. Olivia hated keeping things from her mother, but the truth would be more dangerous. Everything seemed as if it was settling, as if it might finally hold. Then, the letter arrived. A refined white envelope, thick paper, elegant handwriting, addressed to Dante Castellano, from Roberto Salvatore. Olivia watched Dante read it, saw his jaw tighten with every line. What does he want? "Negotiation," Dante said, his voice flat as a lake before a storm. "He wants to meet me at an Italian restaurant downtown, neutral ground. No weapons, no men, just the 2 of us, talking like civilized men." He gave a short laugh with no humor in it. "He knows it is a trap." "Of course. Then do not go." Dante looked at her, and something in his eyes sent cold along Olivia's spine. He included another message. "If I do not show up, he will have people attack Northwestern Hospital. Not only your mother's room, the entire hospital. Hundreds of innocent patients." He set the letter down. "My choice," he said. "One meeting, or a catastrophe." Olivia's heart tightened. "Let me go with you." "No, Dante." He turned fully toward her, and his voice left no room for debate. "Roberto wants to use you as leverage. He wants to see me weak, wants to see me distracted because I am worried about you. You are safer here. But I do not want to sit here and wait while you walk into his trap." Dante stepped closer, cupped her face, his thumb brushing her cheekbone. "I will not go alone. Vincent will go with me, and Marco will stay to protect you." Marco Benedetti, the 32-year-old man who had worked for Dante for 5 years, who liked to tell Olivia funny stories about his younger days, who always smiled warmly and called her Miss Bennett with sincere respect. She trusted him, the same way she trusted Vincent, the same way she trusted Mrs. Hayes. "All right," she said at last, even as every instinct in her screamed. "But you have to promise you will come back." Dante bent down and kissed her, gentle and full of promise. "I will be back before midnight. If anything happens, anything at all, Marco will take you to the safe house. You know the address." Olivia nodded. "Be careful." Dante smiled, that rare smile she had learned to love, always, and then he left. The elevator doors closed, and Olivia stood watching them, unease sitting in her chest like a heavy stone. "Do not worry, Miss Bennett," Marco said from behind her, his voice warm and reassuring. "He will be fine. Mr. Castellano always knows how to handle things." Olivia turned to look at him. At the friendly smile, the earnest eyes. "Thank you, Marco." She did not see his hand slide into his pocket, did not see his fingers skim across the phone screen, did not see the message he sent into the dark. "She is alone. Ready when you are." The Italian restaurant sat on a quiet corner downtown Chicago, warm yellow light spilling through the windows, the scent of basil and garlic drifting out from inside. Dante walked in, Vincent close behind, his eyes sweeping every angle of the room. The place was nearly empty. A few scattered customers, a server wiping down a table. No Roberto Salvatore. Dante checked his watch. Right on time. "He is late," Vincent said, his hand already resting on the gun hidden under his jacket. "Or he does not intend to show." The server approached them, face tight with nerves, a white envelope in his hand. "Mr. Castellano? Someone left this for you." Dante snatched the envelope and tore it open. Inside was a sheet of paper with the familiar handwriting. "Surprise, Dante. Did you really think I wanted to talk?" And beneath it, "Check on your girl, if you can." The blood in Dante's veins turned to ice. He pulled out his phone and called the penthouse. It rang. Once, twice, 3 times. No answer. He called Olivia. "The number you have dialed is currently unreachable." He called Marco. Powered off. Vincent stared at him, his face gone pale. "Boss, Marco." Dante was already running for the door before Vincent could finish. Home. Now. 2 hours earlier, in the penthouse, Olivia was sitting on the sofa reading when Marco walked in, his expression grave. "Miss Bennett, Mr. Castellano just called. The negotiation failed. There are signs Salvatore is preparing an attack. He wants me to take you to the safe house immediately." Olivia's heart began to race. "Is he okay?" "He is fine. He is on his way back, but we can't wait here. I need to get you out now." Olivia nodded, trusting the man who had protected her for weeks. "Okay, let me grab my things." She ran to her room, shoved a few essentials into her bag, and followed Marco down to the basement, where a black SUV was already waiting. They got in, and Marco drove them out of the building, merging into Chicago evening traffic. 20 minutes passed. Olivia watched the city slide by through the window, and a thin, sick unease began to creep into her chest. She knew the route to the safe house. Dante had shown it to her for emergencies, and this was not it. "Marco, this is not the way to the safe house," she said, fighting to keep her voice calm. Marco did not answer. His eyes stayed on the road, both hands clamped on the steering wheel. "Marco!" Click! The sound of the automatic locks. Olivia jolted, reached for the door handle, but it would not move. She turned toward Marco, and for the first time she saw his real face. No friendly smile, no warm eyes, only coldness, and something that looked like the faintest trace of regret. "I am sorry, Miss Bennett," Marco said, flat and quiet. Olivia felt like someone had slapped her. "What?" "Salvatore is paying me 10 times what Castellano has paid me over the last 5 years. He gave a small shrug, as if he were talking about the weather. "Nothing personal, just business." Survival flared in Olivia like a match struck in darkness. She remembered Vincent's lessons, remembered how to fight inside a car, remembered how an elbow can become a weapon. She twisted and drove her fist into Marco's face with everything she had. He dodged most of it, but she lunged forward, reaching for the manual lock, trying to pop it open by hand. Almost. An arm snaked around her throat from behind. She had not known there was a second man in the vehicle, hidden in the back seat. Before she could react, a sharp needle sank into the side of her neck, and something cold slid into her bloodstream. No. She fought, but her body began to betray her. Her arms and legs turned heavy as lead. Her vision blurred. Everything started to sink into dark water. The last thing she heard before consciousness slipped away was the voice of the man behind her. "Boss Salvatore is going to be very happy to meet you." And from far off, as if echoing from another world, Dante's voice roared through Marco's radio. "Marco! Where is she? Olivia!" Then silence. Only darkness. Olivia woke in pain. Her head pounded as if someone were driving a hammer into her skull. Her mouth was desert dry, and her heart was beating out of rhythm inside her chest. She tried to move and realized her hands were tied tight behind her back, the rope biting into her wrists until she could feel her skin scraped raw. She was sitting on a wooden chair, her legs tied to the chair legs as well. Around her was an abandoned warehouse, cracked brick walls, a rusted metal roof, the stink of damp and dust pushing into her nose. Remembering Vincent's lessons, Olivia forced herself to control her breathing and study her surroundings. A steel main door was shut tight. 2 tall windows sat near the ceiling, too high to reach, but thin light slipping through them told her it was still day outside or only just turning to evening. 4 men stood guard in the corners of the warehouse, dressed in black, weapons clearly visible at their belts. They did not look at her. They did not need to. She could not go anywhere. Slow clapping sounded from the shadows at the far end of the warehouse, and Roberto Salvatore stepped out, a smile on his mouth, those dead eyes still holding nothing at all. "Miss Bennett," he said, his voice warmly false, as if welcoming an honored guest. "Finally we get to meet under more intimate conditions. No glamorous gala, no Dante Castellano standing between us, just you and me." Olivia said nothing. She stared straight into his eyes, fighting to keep her face from betraying the fear twisting in her gut. Roberto pulled a tablet from inside his suit jacket and came closer, turning the screen toward her. I want to show you something. On the screen was video from the penthouse security cameras. Dante was there, and Olivia almost did not recognize him. He was out of control, smashing anything within reach. A glass table shattered. The sofa was flipped. His hands were bloody from punching the wall. He was screaming into the phone, his face warped with rage and pain. "Look," Roberto said, his tone thick with satisfaction. "Look at how he is suffering because of you. This is only the beginning." Olivia's eyes burned, but she did not let the tears fall. She would not give him that pleasure. Roberto shut off the tablet and studied her, head tilted as if examining an animal in a cage. "Do you know why I want Dante to hurt?" He did not wait for her answer. 11 years ago, he killed my father. But that is fine. That is business. In this world, fathers and sons killing each other is normal. I can accept that." He began to circle her, like a vulture around prey that was not dead yet. "But 5 years ago, Dante Castellano killed Luca. My brother. The only brother I ever had." His voice shifted, and for the first time real emotion slipped through the mask. "Luca was 22. He had nothing to do with the war between our families. He was only in the wrong place at the wrong time, and Dante ordered him killed like a dog." Roberto stopped in front of Olivia and bent down until he was level with her eyes. "I waited 8 years in prison to do this. 8 years thinking about the moment I would take away everything Dante loves. And now here you are." Olivia swallowed her fear and held his gaze. "He will come," she said, her voice shaking but clear. "And when he does, you will wish you never touched me." Roberto laughed, a sound cold as winter. "I am looking forward to that. I want him to come. I want him to see what I have done to you. I want to look into his eyes when he realizes he failed to protect the person he loves." He straightened and turned to his men. "Send the video to Castellano, 1 every hour. Let him see what I can do to her." Then he looked back at Olivia and pulled a small knife from his pocket. The cold steel blade glittered under the weak light falling through the windows. "Do not worry, Miss Bennet," he said, his voice gentle in a way that made it worse. "I will keep you alive, at least until he gets here." He lifted the blade and let it touch her cheek, ice cold. "But before he arrives, we are going to have a little fun. Let us start with something memorable." Olivia clenched her teeth, her eyes never leaving his. Her body trembled, fear curling through every cell. But she did not cry. She did not beg. She would not give him that satisfaction. Whatever happened, she would not let him see her weak. Because Dante would come. She knew he would come, and when he did, Roberto Salvatore would learn what hell really means. Castellano Tower seemed to shake under the fury of Dante Castellano. His office, once a symbol of power and control, now looked as if a storm had torn through it. The oak desk lay overturned. The computer monitor was smashed to pieces on the floor. The large mirror on the wall had been punched into a spiderweb of broken glass, and blood from Dante's hand dripped onto the marble. But he did not feel pain. He felt nothing except the rage that was burning through every cell in his body. Vincent stood in the doorway, his face drained white. After 20 years of serving the Castellano family, he had seen many things. He had watched Dante kill without blinking. He had watched him face death without trembling. But he had never seen his boss like this. Never seen this total loss of control, the wildness of a man losing the only thing he loved. "Find her," Dante snarled, his voice like a wounded animal. "I do not care what it takes. Use every resource. Call everyone. Find her." Vincent's phone rang, a message from the patrol team. They had found Marco. He was trying to run across the state border, but their people had stopped him. Dante did not say a word. He stormed out of the office and down to the basement where Marco was being held. When he stepped into the dark room, Marco Benedetti was on his knees on the concrete floor, his face already swollen from the fists of the men who caught him. But that was nothing yet. Dante did not need a weapon. He only needed his hands. 5 minutes later, Marco confessed everything. The old Moretti warehouse, the southern outskirts, about 40 minutes by car from here. Salvatore had around 15 men guarding it. When he finished, his face was covered in blood, his nose broken, a few teeth lying on the floor. Dante straightened and looked at the traitor with an expression that held nothing but contempt. He did not kill Marco. Not yet. Death would be too easy for a man like him. Dante's phone vibrated. A video had been sent from an unknown number. He opened it, and his heart broke. Olivia sat in a chair, her hands tied, a small cut on her cheek bleeding down to her chin. But she was not crying. She was not begging. She only stared into the camera, green eyes steady and defiant, as if she knew Dante was watching, as if she were telling him she was still here, that she was still fighting. Roberto's voice came through the video. "TikTok Castellano." Dante stared at the screen, and in that moment every wall he had built over a lifetime collapsed. He remembered the first time he saw her in the cafe, 8 months ago. He remembered the way she smiled at the newsboy and handed him bread without thinking anyone was watching. In that instant, he had known. He had known she was different. She was a light he did not deserve to have. She was the only reason he wanted to wake up each morning in a world full of shadows. And if he lost her, he would burn this world down. Building by building, person by person, everything Roberto Salvatore had ever touched. He would turn it all into ash. "Call Moretti," Dante said, his voice cold as ice and filled with death. "Call everyone who still owes the Castellano family. Tonight, I collect." Vincent hesitated. "Boss, if you do this, you will owe the Moretti family. They will demand 10 times in return." Dante looked at him, and in those steel gray eyes Vincent saw something that made him shiver. Not anger, not pain. Absolute acceptance. "I will owe the devil himself if I have to," Dante said. "Roberto wants to see the monster in me. Tonight he will." 30 minutes later, a convoy of 5 black SUVs left Castellano Tower, heading south of Chicago. In the lead vehicle, Dante sat checking the gun in his hands, the motions practiced and cold. 20 men, Vincent said. "That is all we can mobilize on short notice." "It is enough," Dante said as he shoved the magazine into the weapon. "No one survives, except her." Vincent looked at him, and Roberto. Dante did not answer right away. He stared out the window, where Chicago streetlights slid past like blurred streaks. When he finally spoke, his voice was a whisper from hell. "Roberto is mine." At midnight, the old Moretti warehouse sat motionless in the darkness of the Chicago outskirts, lit only by a few weak bulbs scattered around the property. None of the guards saw the black convoy glide in without sound, headlights off, like ghosts slipping through night. None of them heard the footsteps of 20 men closing in from every direction, and when the first gunshot cracked the air, it was already too late. Chaos erupted. Automatic fire tore open the darkness, mixed with screaming, glass shattering, bodies hitting concrete. Dante's men flooded in like a rising tide, without mercy, without hesitation. This was not a battle. This was a slaughter. Inside the warehouse, Olivia heard the gunfire, and her heart climbed into her throat. He is here. Dante is here. The 4 guards in the room panicked, grabbed their guns, and rushed toward the door. Olivia remembered what Vincent had taught her. If you are tied up and you need an opening, create a distraction. She let her whole body go limp and toppled sideways, pretending to faint. The chair crashed down, and she lay still on the floor, eyes shut, breathing steady. One of the guards glanced back. The girl passed out. "Leave her. Take care of the front door." They ran out, and Olivia began to rub the rope against the sharp corner of the broken chair leg, trying to loosen the knot. The steel door burst open, and Roberto Salvatore lunged in, his face pale, his suit speckled with blood. He saw Olivia on the floor and yanked her upright at once, spinning her around as a shield, the blade of a knife pressed to her throat. Olivia felt the cold steel on her skin, felt his hot breath near her ear, and she knew she had to stay calm. She had to wait for the right moment. "Castellano!" Roberto roared toward the doorway. "Come in, or she dies." Silence stretched for the length of a heartbeat. Then Dante stepped in. He came alone, his weapon lowered at his side, not raised in threat, but his eyes told a different story. When he saw Olivia, saw the cut on her cheek, the blood dried into a dark streak, his entire body tightened like a wire about to snap. In those steel-gray eyes, Olivia saw pure, lethal fury, and a grief so deep it made her want to cry. One more step, she dies. Roberto drove the knife harder against Olivia's neck, and she felt a shallow slice, warm blood slipping down. Dante went rigid. "Take me," he said, his voice rough. "Let her go. She has nothing to do with what is between us. I am who you want. Take me." Roberto laughed, a crazed laugh from a man who had lost but refused to admit it. Finally, Dante Castellano willing to die for a woman. Your father would be ashamed. He kept talking, savoring his imagined victory, and in that moment he lost focus. Olivia remembered Vincent's lesson. When the knife is at your throat, dip toward the blade, not away from it. It is the last thing an attacker expects. She moved. She dropped her head forward so the blade slid to the side instead of cutting deeper, and at the same time she drove the back of her head into Roberto's face with all the strength she had. The sound of bone breaking, blood spraying. Roberto screamed, his hand releasing the knife as he clutched his shattered nose, and Dante surged forward. He did not use his gun. He did not use a knife. He used his hands. The first punch dropped Roberto. The second broke more bone, and he did not stop. He hit, and hit, and hit, every blow carrying 11 years of hatred, carrying the pain of losing his father, carrying the terror of believing he was about to lose Olivia. Olivia saw it all. She saw the monster inside Dante Castellano, the thing he had worked so hard to keep hidden. She saw him kill Roberto Salvatore, not quickly, not mercifully, but slowly and painfully. And when Roberto finally stopped moving, stopped breathing, Dante stood there for a moment, shoulders shaking, hands soaked in blood. Then he turned to Olivia, and everything in him collapsed. He ran to her and pulled her into his arms, holding her as if she would disappear the second he let go. His hands, still bloody, touched her face, and he did not care, and neither did she. "I thought I lost you," he said, his voice breaking, trembling. "I thought I got here too late. I thought," Olivia cried, the tears she had held back for hours finally spilling free. But she held him too, held on tight, feeling his frantic heartbeat against her chest. "I am here," she whispered. "I am okay. You came. I am okay." They stood there in a warehouse full of bodies and the stench of blood, holding each other as if the world outside no longer existed. And when Olivia finally pulled back, she looked down at his hands, at the blood on his shirt, at the wreckage of the room around them. She saw everything he was, and she made her decision. "I know who you are, Dante," she said, her voice calm and steady. "I saw it all, and I am still here." Dante looked at her, those steel gray eyes filled with confusion and hope. "Why?" Olivia smiled, a small smile through tears. "Because I saved myself too," she said. "I am not a princess waiting to be rescued. And you are not a knight. We are a team. That is how it works." The penthouse had never been so quiet when they returned in the first hours of morning. Mrs. Hayes was waiting at the elevator doors, her eyes red as if she had been crying all night, and when she saw Olivia step out, she wrapped her in a fierce embrace without saying a word. Dante's private doctor arrived soon after, an older man with steady hands and eyes that asked no questions. He stitched the cut on Olivia's cheek, small but deep, and said it would leave a scar. "Not a big one," he said, "but it will be there forever." Olivia did not care. She was alive. That was the only thing that mattered. Dante did not leave her side for a moment. He sat beside her while the doctor worked, his hand gripping hers, his eyes fixed on the wound as if he were punishing himself with it every second. He had showered and changed, but Olivia could still see the bruising on his knuckles, the evidence of what he had done to Roberto Salvatore. That night they lay together in bed, but sleep did not come easily. Olivia slipped into darkness and saw Roberto standing in front of her, the cold blade against her throat, his voice whispering endless threats into her ear. She jerked awake, heart racing, her nightshirt damp with sweat. Beside her, Dante did not sleep peacefully either. He shifted and muttered words that made no sense, and when she touched his shoulder, he sprang up with the wild eyes of a man ripped out of a nightmare. He dreamed of arriving too late. She knew without having to ask. He dreamed of her dying. At 3 a.m, they sat propped against the headboard, both of them giving up on trying to sleep. Moonlight slipped through the glass and laid a faint silver wash over them. Olivia looked down at her hands, where the bruises from the rope were still stamped into her skin. "I saw you kill someone," she said, her voice soft but steady. Not a question, an acknowledgement. Dante did not flinch. He looked straight into her eyes, accepting whatever judgment she might give. "Are you afraid?" Olivia was quiet for a moment, truly thinking about it. "I should be," she said at last, "but I am not afraid of you. I am afraid of the fact that I am not afraid. I am afraid of what that says about who I am." Dante watched her, and in those steel-gray eyes there was a deep sadness. He did not justify what he was. "I have killed people," he said, his voice low. "I will kill again if I have to protect what I love. That is the world I live in, and I can't change it." He lifted his hand, fingers brushing the bandage on her cheek with a gentleness that made her chest ache. "But if you want to leave, I will let you go. I will make sure you are safe, forever. Money, protection, anything you need. No one will touch you. You can live a normal life, far from this darkness, far from me. Olivia looked at him, at the man who had burned the world down to save her, now offering to let her go because he believed it was best for her, and she made her choice. I have seen myself save myself, she said, her voice certain. I am not a princess waiting to be rescued. I am a partner. She took his hand and placed it against her chest, where her heart was beating. I am not romanticizing you, Dante. I know who you are. I know your world is full of darkness and blood. But I also know you are the man who sat in a cafe every morning for 8 months just to watch me. I know you are the man who cried when you thought I was dead. She paused, drew a slow breath. I love you, all of you, the darkness and the light. Dante looked at her, as if she had just handed him a miracle he did not deserve to touch. I have loved you since the first day, he said, his voice rough. The first day I saw you smile at the newsboy and give him bread when you thought no one was watching. In that moment I knew you were different. You are the only pure thing in my life, the only reason I want to become better. He lifted his hand and cradled her face, looking into her eyes with all the honesty he had. I will spend my whole life protecting you, if you let me. I will love you, worship you, fight for you. I am not perfect, and my world is dangerous, but I promise you will never have to face it alone. Olivia smiled, the first real smile since she woke up in that warehouse. She leaned in and kissed him, gentle, full of love. I let you, she whispered against his mouth. But you have to understand one thing too. I will protect you. I will fight beside you. I will not sit and wait while you face the world alone. That is how it works. Dante looked at her, and what happened next stole Olivia's breath. He smiled, not the usual sharp curve of his mouth. A real smile, warm enough to light his steel-gray eyes. For the first time since she had known him, for the first time since everything happened, he smiled like life might still be worth living. Deal. 1 month had passed since the blood-soaked night at the old Moretti warehouse. Roberto Salvatore was dead, and the Salvatore family fell apart like a sandcastle before the tide, the ones left behind either running or begging to be taken in by other families for protection. Chicago was finally quiet, and Olivia thought maybe they could begin again from here. But she was wrong. On the night he saved her, Dante had promised too many things to mobilize 20 men that fast, and now those debts were coming due. The Moretti family demanded payment first. Olivia did not know exactly what they wanted. Dante did not say, and she did not ask, but she saw him changing. He came home later, his face drawn tight, his steel-gray eyes as cold as they had been in the earliest days when they first met. He did not smile anymore. There were no more nights of lying together and talking until late. He was carrying a weight he did not want to share, and that hurt Olivia more than any wound. She was not the kind of person who sat still and waited. She began to dig. Through Mrs. Hayes, through small scraps of conversation the housekeeper let slip without meaning to. She asked Vincent when he drove her to work, and even though he said little, the worry in his eyes told her everything. Moretti was asking Dante to do something he did not want to do, something that went against his principles, and Dante was being pushed into a corner with no way out. One night, while Olivia was working a late shift at Northwestern Memorial, where she had just been hired as a nurse after graduating, she overheard a conversation between co-workers. They were talking about an urgent kidney transplant, about a VIP patient from a wealthy family who was desperate to find a suitable donor. And when she heard the name, her heart jolted. Moretti, the Moretti boss's son, needed a kidney transplant, and they had been searching for months with no success. Olivia knew what she had to do. She used every connection she had through the hospital, through colleagues she had helped during her internship months, through doctors she had impressed with her hard work and devotion. She searched the system, contacted other hospitals, and after 2 weeks, she found one, a matching donor. That night, she went to Dante's office, where he was sitting alone in the dark, a whiskey bottle half empty on the desk. She told him she could help Moretti get what they needed, something more valuable than anything he could give them. Dante looked up at her, eyes red from lack of sleep. What are you saying? Not with violence or money. Olivia sat across from him. With connections. Moretti's son needs a kidney transplant. I found a matching donor. Dante stared at her as if she had spoken in a foreign language. How do you even know? I am a nurse, Dante. Olivia smiled. I have connections money can't buy. And I said I am your partner. I was not joking. The next day, Olivia went to meet Boss Moretti. Vincent went with her, not because Dante did not trust her, but because he would never let her face danger alone again. Moretti was an older man with eyes sharp as blades, but when Olivia offered her deal, a life-saving kidney for his son in exchange for wiping out every debt Dante owed, the man's gaze shifted. "Castellano's girl has more nerve than he does," he said, and a rare smile appeared on his mouth. "Fine. Deal." That night, when Olivia returned to the penthouse and told Dante everything, he looked at her with an expression she had never seen on him before: surprise, pride, and a love so deep it made her feel as if she were being pulled under. "You did not have to do that," he said, his voice rough. "I know." Olivia stepped closer and placed her hand against his chest. "I wanted to. You saved me once. Now I saved you. We are even." Dante covered her hand with his, threading his fingers through hers. "We are never even," he said, and for the first time in weeks, he smiled, a warm smile that lit up his steel-gray eyes. "I will spend my whole life owing you." A year passed like a dream. Olivia stood on the stage in her graduation gown, her nursing diploma in her hands, and when she looked down at the rows of seats, she saw the two most important people in her life sitting side by side. Her mother, Catherine Bennett, thinner than before, but bright-eyed and healthy, was wiping away tears of pride, and Dante Castellano, the coldest Mafia boss in Chicago, was smiling at her as if she had just conquered the whole world. She started working at Northwestern Memorial right after she graduated, the very place where her mother had fought lung cancer, the very place where Olivia had found the connections that saved Dante from his debt to Moretti. Every day she wore her white uniform, cared for patients, and felt like she was finally living the life she had dreamed about. Catherine was now completely well, living in a new apartment in a safe part of Chicago. Dante had bought it 6 months earlier, but Olivia told her mother it was thanks to a cancer patient support program. A small lie, but she knew her mother would never accept it if she knew the truth. Olivia and Dante's relationship was still the same as in the beginning, still full of passion, still making her heart race every time he walked into the room. They had been through hell together, and that forged a bond nothing could break. Every week, Olivia still stopped by the Copper Kettle Cafe, where Maya had now become the manager. "Girl, a year ago you owed money to a loan shark, almost got sold into a brothel," Maya said, handing her the familiar latte. "Now you are living in a penthouse with a Mafia boss and working as a nurse at the biggest hospital in Chicago. What the hell happened?" Olivia laughed and took a sip of coffee. "Life is weird." Olivia's 28th birthday arrived on an autumn night, when Chicago had begun to turn chilly, and the leaves were shifting into gold and orange. Dinner was set on the terrace of the penthouse, the place where they had shared so many late-night conversations, where Dante had opened up about his mother, where they had received that threatening photograph from Roberto Salvatore. Missus Hayes prepared Olivia's favorite dishes. Vincent and the security men were all there, no longer just guards but family. And for the first time, Catherine Bennett stepped into Dante Castellano's penthouse. Her mother froze at the elevator doors, eyes wide at the luxury all around her, and it took Olivia 10 minutes to convince her that her daughter had not been kidnapped or forced to stay. Dante was a true gentleman, bowing his head to Catherine, pulling out her chair, treating her like a queen. By the end of dinner, Catherine was laughing and talking with him as if they had known each other for years. When everyone had finished eating, Dante stood and set a small, elegant box in front of Olivia. "A birthday gift," he said, his eyes shining with something secret. Olivia opened the box, her heart beating fast, and she was surprised to see it was not a ring. It was a key. She looked up, confused, and Dante placed a stack of documents beside it. "Deed of ownership, the Copper Kettle Cafe. He bought it 6 months ago," Dante said softly. "The old owner was going to sell to a developer to build a high-rise. He could not let that happen. It was where they met, where he fell in love with her at first sight. Now it was hers. She could do whatever she wanted with it." Tears spilled down Olivia's cheeks. She looked at the key in her hand, at the papers, at the man watching her with all that love in his steel-gray eyes. "This is," she began, and then faltered, because he did not have to. "I know," Dante said, smiling, "but I wanted to." He paused, and then something unexpected happened. "And there is one more thing." He went down on one knee. Dante went down on one knee in front of Olivia, and the whole world seemed to stop turning. The terrace fell into absolute silence. Catherine lifted a hand to cover her mouth. "Mrs." Hayes clenched her lace handkerchief. Vincent stood perfectly still like carved stone. In Dante's hand was a small black velvet box, and when he opened it, candlelight shimmered on a diamond that was simple and yet perfect. "Olivia Bennett," Dante said, his voice low and thick with feeling. I will not promise you a normal life. I can't. I will not promise there will be no danger, no nights when I come home late, no enemies. That is not the world I can give you." He paused, steel gray eyes locked on hers, and in them Olivia saw everything he was, the darkness and the light, the monster and the man who had loved her from the first look. "But I promise I will love you, every day, forever. I promise you will always be my partner, not my property. I promise I will listen to you, respect you, fight beside you instead of fighting for you. I promise I will build whatever future you want, as long as you are in it." He took her hand and pressed a gentle kiss to her knuckles. "Will you marry me?" Tears streamed down Olivia's cheeks, but she smiled, the brightest smile she had ever worn. "Yes," she said, her voice breaking. "A million times yes." Dante rose, slid the ring onto her finger, and then he kissed her, a sweet kiss full of promises, set to the sound of everyone's applause. Catherine cried without trying to hide it. Mrs. Hayes wiped her eyes with the lace handkerchief, and even Vincent lifted a hand to his own eye when he thought no one was watching. The next morning, 7:14 in the morning, the Copper Kettle Cafe opened like it did every day, rich coffee scent filling the air, early sunlight pouring through the windows. But today, something felt different. Olivia stood behind the counter for the first time as the owner, not an employee. Maya stood beside her, making coffee the way she always had, grinning wide. "Girl, look at you, coffee shop owner, nurse, and about to be a Mafia boss's wife. Who would have guessed?" Olivia laughed and looked down at the diamond ring on her hand. "Definitely not me." 7:15 in the morning. The doorbell rang, and Dante Castellano walked into the Copper Kettle Cafe the way he had every day for almost 2 years. Tall, commanding, filling the space as if he owned the world. But when his eyes found Olivia, all that coldness melted away, leaving only pure love. He walked straight to the counter. Like always, but today there was a ring on her finger. Today everything was different. "Double espresso, Mr. Castellano?" Olivia asked, her eyes sparkling with mischief. Dante smiled, the smile she got to see every day now. "No, today, I want to try something different." "Like what?" "A lifetime with you." Olivia laughed, her heart overflowing. Coming right up, she made the familiar espresso and carried it to the corner booth where Dante had sat for 8 months just to watch her. But today she did not set the cup down and walk away. She slid in beside him, not across. Her shoulder brushed his, her hand rested in his. They looked out through the glass as Chicago slowly woke under the pale light of dawn. She had found him in the darkness of her worst days, and he had found her in the simple light of an ordinary coffee shop. Together they had built something no one expected, not a fairy tale, but something better, something real. Home was not a penthouse with marble floors and a city view. Home was not a cafe with an espresso machine and busy mornings. Home was here. It was him. It was her. It was them. And whatever came next, they would face it together. The story of Olivia and Dante has come to a close, but the lessons from their journey will remain. Sometimes life pushes us into situations that feel like there is no way out, like Olivia, when she had to borrow money from a loan shark to save her mother. But it is in the deepest darkness that we find the most unexpected light. Love does not always arrive in the shape we expect. It can come from a stranger, sitting in the corner of a cafe every morning, a man the world calls dangerous, yet the only one willing to burn everything down to protect us. And most importantly, this story reminds us that we do not need to be rescued, we need to be accompanied. Olivia did not become a fragile princess waiting for a prince to save her. She saved herself. She fought. She became Dante's equal partner. That is true love, when two people lift each other up, protect each other, and become stronger together than they ever were alone. If Olivia and Dante's story touched your heart, please tap the like button and subscribe to our channel so you will not miss the next moving stories. Share this video with the people you love, the people who still believe in a love worth fighting for. We would truly love to hear what you felt. What do you think of this story? In real life, do you believe love can cross every barrier, every darkness? Have you ever met someone who made you willing to fight for them? Leave a comment below and share what is in your heart. Every comment you leave is fuel for us to keep bringing you even better stories. Thank you for walking with us through Olivia and Dante's journey. We wish you and your loved ones good health, a joyful life, and peaceful days ahead. Goodbye for now, and we will see you in the next video, where new stories are waiting to be told.